And we are here. Hi, we're back. I was not even in the building at 4:30, so we couldn't do a 4:30 start. But I managed to get up and running for 5. I was shopping around looking for ideas. Just something to inspire me. So I was grabbing odds and ends and bits and pieces, and I didn't know where we were going to land. But here's where we landed. These were on sale. Not in the discount bin, just a normal, sale. This stuff is, near as I can tell, it's calling itself luncheon meat. Point stuff backwards. Luncheon meat, which is the generic term for all of those Spam things. The round-cornered, rectangular can of meat. You can clearly see that that's what they are going for. Now, it doesn't come in a can, it comes in a bag because these are pre-made slices. So that's a bit of a factor. You don't have the easy portioning, but this might be, no, this isn't reclosable. So it's also not a reclosable container. So I have to think about it. I'm gonna see when I take them out of here, stack them up, see if it adds up to about the same size as a normal can of Spam, which I do not have on hand. I considered buying one to do a direct comparison, but I figured that would be too much meat. So we're not doing that. So I think what we're going to do with it, first I want to test it pretty much bare, pretty much naked, just to see what it's like, because I'm interested to see the stuff. Shout out to Omni brand. You're breaking new ground as far as I can tell in the plant-based proteins here, because I've never seen anyone attempt a spam. So we're going to try one of them just plain, see what it does. I want to do a direct, just naked taste test. But then after that, I think I'm going to make musubi, which I've never made for real, but I've always heard is great. So we're going to try that out. And that probably won't take enough time, and also it won't be a very complete meal because it's just going to be rice and meat and a little bit of seaweed. So it needs a side or something. I don't have any miso. We used up the last of my miso last time. So although I have some dashi here, which I need to use up because it's getting a little bit aged, we don't have any miso, so I would have to futz around to try to figure out how to make a miso soup. We can think about these things as we progress. But I guess, and unlike Monday, when I didn't stream because I was not hungry. Today, I'm hungry. So I also don't want to beat around the bush and wait. Because I want to get, because we're making my dinner alongside having fun. So let's, already got my cutting board propped up. Let's get right in it and pull this open, see what they look like. They look like slices of Spam. Now this whole thing on sale was $4, which is actually less than a can of Spam, but it was marked down from 6 or 7, I'm not sure, I can't remember, which is obviously more than a can of Spam, although not that much more. Cans of Spam are like $5-6. So it's not that much difference. And by the looks of it, you get, they're a little bit smaller this way around than I think a slice of Spam would be. And they don't fit perfectly well together, so I think you're getting slightly less overall. I don't want to go by weight because it's not the same material, so it's not going to weigh the same. It's greasy to the touch like meat, which is something I don't encounter with these fake meats. Although I don't have a lot of experience with the fake meats. I want to try them out a lot more, but they're often quite pricey, and I am very price conscious. So yeah, they honestly look pretty good. Saizan, hi, welcome. You are first, and you have declared a moisten. Moist. Yeah, this is the brand. I picked them because they were on sale, but I'm interested in them because this is the first time I've ever seen a vegan Spam. They're also less sodium than luncheon meat, which means Spam. And I was just comparing the size. Now, I didn't grab a can of Spam. I don't have a can of Spam on hand, like real Spam on hand. I'm just eyeballing them, and I think that the stack here altogether is slightly smaller, but they are like greasy to the touch. Yeah. Water, soy protein, canola oil, cornstarch, potato starch, yeast, gluten, methyl cellulose, don't know what that is, more soy protein, natural flavor, salt, smoke flavor, beet powder for color. The color is actually, it is frozen. It's a frozen product. I found it in the frozen, in the like the natural foods aisle with the other meats. The color is spot on in this frozen form. Well, yeah, I guess we're going to now. I was going to use. I was going to use this pan, but I used this pan for lunch, and I didn't. And I was out looking for ingredients today, so I didn't wash it. So we're going to wash a pan really quick, because I wanted to use this pan for it. But first things first, we're going to try one of these without any accoutrements. Just see what it's like, see what it does. It does. It looks such like Spam. It's great. Except it doesn't have the jelly, the Spam jelly, which might be a deal breaker for some people if they're looking for a substitute for Spam. I have said multiple times, not so much on the show here because I don't do a lot of imitation meats on account of they are costly. But I think that heavily processed meats are the perfect places to swap in plant proteins because I forget to change the lighting on my stove these days because the lighting on my overhead here remembers because it's a better camera. Heavily processed meats like this are the best place to swap in plant proteins because one of the big complaints about plant proteins is that they are highly processed foods. Let's just take the top one and let's heat the pan up first. I'll just talk while the pan is warming up. Spam is already a heavily processed food. So swapping in a heavily processed plant protein is fine. You're not increasing the level of processing. You're not increasing all that stuff that people complain about. And also, it's got a lot of flavorings added to it, which you can add flavorings to plant proteins and they'll come out almost the same. I think that things like, if they taste good, that's always the trick, things like chicken nuggets, Spam, sausages, fast food, Fast food burgers are the perfect place for it because you can't taste the beef in there. So I'm hoping these taste good because this is one of those things where it's just, as much as I like Spam, and I'm not a huge fan of Spam, but it's okay. It has its place. It does what it is. What it is. It does what it does. The pricing on this is similar enough to Spam, which is one of the big deal breakers for a lot of those meats. Is they're a lot more expensive. This is similar enough to Spam that I would consider this, although it takes up freezer space instead of pantry space. It's not in a little shelf-stable can. It's in a freezer pouch. So that's also a consideration. So yeah. And then, like I said, we're going to try making, I think we're going to try making musubi out of it, unless it's real bad, and then I'm going to come up with a different idea. And while we're doing that, we're thinking about something to put on, to serve with it, something on the side, because otherwise it's going to be kind of one note. We're going to need the furikake. We're going to need the sushi rice. Okay, that's probably hot enough. It sizzled all the water off from when I just scrubbed it out. So let's pop one of these in here, see what it do. It'll take a minute to start cooking up. I wonder how much it'll shrink, if at all. If it does not shrink at all, then I think we have the same size as Spam, because when you cook a slice of Spam, it shrinks up as it loses some of the water that's in it. This might not, but it might, so we have to see. Water is an ingredient, so it might shrink up a little bit while we're browning the faces. And this is just naked in a pan. I didn't even oil it. I just want to see what it does, because you can just throw Spam in a dry pan and it'll cook because it has enough fat in it to lubricate itself. And this was greasy to the, like I said, greasy to the touch, so it might do the same. It's frozen, so I can't really give it a sniff test. It just smells like frozen. So yeah, I was out and about looking for who knows what. I found, while we're cooking the Spam, let me show you what I found today, and oh my God, was it cheap. I'm a little worried at how cheap it was. It was not in the bargain bin, it was just on a sale, and they had a giant stack of them. They had so many of these. This is a whole side of salmon. Not a huge salmon, obviously, but it's a whole side of salmon for $4. That's absurd. That price is insane. It makes me worried there's something wrong with it. So I guess eventually I'm gonna try that out. I'll probably try that out soon. If it ends up being good, I'll go back and stock up. Because that was. But what do we do? The whole side is. I'm gonna have to have a dinner party so I can have the whole side of salmon and share it, because it's too much. It's a plastic spatula. So we have a sizzle and pop. It's coming along. My phone just boodly booped. It's not smelling like Spam as I cook it. It smells like Smells like chicken nuggets, like McDonald's chicken nuggets. It probably smells like hot soy protein and wheat. I imagine that's what I'm smelling, but with the sort of meat flavors that they've added to it, I think it smells a lot like a cheap fast food chicken nugget. Which I don't hate. If that's the baseline that they fall back to, that's not that bad. Like I said, I think that chicken nuggets are a perfect place to swap in plant proteins because they already are this highly processed thing. We have to give a guess. Well, we could just flip it back and forth. There's no reason to leave it. We're not grilling. We're not getting grill lines on it. Well, it leaves a greasy schmear in the pan, so it definitely has enough of its own fat to cook just like Spam. We're getting some browning on the surface, but not like crazy browning. We'll hold it up next to one of the frozen ones when we get it off, just to completely compare the size. We've got a good like crust formed on the top there, so I'm currently very hopeful it's behaving the right way. We just have to see if it tastes along with it. That's of course always the factor. I got a can of imitation tuna that was the same price as a can of tuna, and I'm iffy on canned tuna in general because tuna are generally quite overfished. So I was hopeful about the fake canned tuna. It was awful. It was just awful. It didn't taste like tuna, but it also just tasted bad. Like, I'm not expecting these things to taste exactly like the meat, but they should at least be palatable. That was not. That one was a complete fail. So I'm dubious of that type of thing. But I've had good experiences with imitation beef and chicken. So I've also had good experiences with imitation meats that aren't trying to be a specific meat, but are just trying to go for that mystery meat, which I think might be where this lands, which might mean they're really good. It is a little soft. Ooh. It's a little softer than a piece of meat, and it looks like we stuck just a tiny bit. If we weren't on a non-stick, I think that would have actually stuck. So that's a consideration, although it cooks pretty fast. So we're looking at pretty good. Said pretty good a bunch of times in a row just then. That's probably going to be good. Just as is then. So let it coast on residual heat for just a minute here. And then we'll bring it back over. We'll compare the sizes to see if we did get any shrinkage. I didn't notice any, but it's also sitting by itself, so it's hard to compare. Spam shrinks actually quite a bit when you cook it, so that might be a point in this thing's favor. You could probably eat it without frying it, just like Spam. Oh, no, according to this, you should not eat it. You should at least get it to 165 internal, which isn't terribly hot. Flip every minute. Ooh, interesting. So there are directions for the stovetop, and I did not follow them. But let's give it the old tasteroo, because now I think this is about as cooked as I want it to be. Put that there. So it's hot. It's very slightly smaller. I think it shrank quite a bit less than a piece of Spam would, which I'm going to count as a point in this thing's favor. Now that it's more cooked, oh, that was top of my head. I just saw it on my preview. Now that it's cooked, it develops a good crust on the outside. It's got a nice sort of soft pink interior. Huh. It's a lot less salty than Spam. I will tell you that. The texture is great. The texture is very much like Spam. And it has, if you've ever had turkey Spam, this tastes very much like turkey Spam. It's a much less intense version of that same flavor that is Spam. It's got the same profile as Spam, but it's less intense. And the texture is on point. I've had a different, I know Spam is the one that everyone's had, but there are other brands of canned luncheon meat in the same thing. And the other one I've tried is Treat. And Treat is much softer. It's almost like it still holds shape like this. You can slice it, but it's very soft on the inside, even though it's real meat. And I thought this might be like that, but no, the texture on this is very much like Spam, and it's got a good sort of bite to it. I actually really like this. I think this might be the most goodest meat substitute thing, other than I have had a really good Impossible Burger, cooked in an actual restaurant. But no, I'm going to say Omni brand, not a sponsor, but dang, this is a mighty tasty product. I am very, very impressed. I think you could do anything you would do with Spam and more other things that you wouldn't necessarily do with Spam, because Spam has such a strong spammy flavor, and this stuff is much more understated. No, this is great. This is great. I like this. This is good. 2 thumbs up. Good job. Keep an eye out for this one, I think. No. And this is exactly what I said at the beginning. I think that highly processed meats like this are the perfect place for swapping in plant proteins, because they're already so processed. You just do the same process to the plant proteins, and you end up with the same product. No one's fooling themselves thinking that Spam tastes like pork. It tastes like Spam. So That's great. We are definitely, and it's a lot less salty. It's still, actually, it's not that salty at all. Hmm. It's not extremely high in protein. Well, what is that? 25%? No, 12%. Cybertraz! You can write a lot of messages. I wouldn't stop you. We just taste tested. I just grabbed one of these guys, slapped him in a dry pan, treated him like I would a piece of Spam that I cut off of that loaf that comes in the can, just to see what it would do. And I am extremely impressed. I think I like this better than Spam because it is less in your face. It reminds me of the turkey Spam, like I said. Okay. Okay, I'm super, super impressed. And we have the rest of the package here that we're going to make. We don't even have to use the rest of the package, honestly. They're frozen. If we keep them frozen, we can just keep them, which would make it easier to portion out than Spam as well. That's another thing in its favor. This thing is racking up wins so far. It cooks easily, it tastes great, it's easier to portion out and save the extras. Spam, so these are the raw ones, and they look a lot like Spam. I don't have a can of real Spam, so I can't show you. Spam is, it's a highly processed loaf of pork and spices and a lot of salt that gets stuffed into a little can that's exactly this shape. It has a very distinctive flavor that doesn't really taste like pork. It tastes like the flavorings and the spices and the chemicals they put in there to make it a preserved meat. It's room temperature, shelf stable meat. This stuff has done an excellent job of mimicking it in terms of look, in terms of how to use it, in terms of flavor, although it's toned down, which I've said twice now. I think Spam is a little bit too punchy. This stuff is toned down from Spam, which is good. It's also a lot less salty. It's a lot less salty, which Spam is extremely salty. And I got this on sale, and the sale price was considerably cheaper than a can of Spam. The non-sale price is a bit more, but not backbreakingly more. And I think I might go out of my way to get this in place of Spam. It's really good. I've never heard of this brand before today when I saw it, so. There's an ad. So while that ad is kicking up, I'm going to put some rice on. Or at least get my rice cooker out of the cupboard. I'll keep talking. I know you probably can hear me, but some people can't. I'll keep talking about Spam when we get back from this ad. Instructions on the rice. We're going to do 1 cup of sushi rice. I have opinions about Spam. I'm not fooled by it. So, yes. Why is Spam a lower class food? because it is a highly processed, pantry stable canned meat. So comparing that to like a fresh piece of meat, which the rich people would have access to, because remember, Spam originated in like the World War II era. So class divides were dramatic. I'm going to give this a quick rinse, not a full rinse, because we want it to be a little bit sticky, but we don't want it to be too sticky. So we're going to give it a quick rinse. These days, Spam is actually not even the cheapest like meat available. Most of the places I shop, fresh pork is cheaper than Spam now. So it's kind of got a legacy of being kind of a cheap thing. You can ship it because it's room temperature stable and it's in a can, so it can be shipped anywhere. So the American soldiers in World War II took it with them into the Pacific region, and in many places the locals loved it because they don't have a ton of land for raising livestock to get a lot of meat. So fresh meat's a big luxury in places like that. Whereas Spam could be shipped to them, canned and shipped in, and then they could store it ad infinitum. And it's a lot cheaper in a place like that to ship in canned stuff than it is to ship in fresh stuff. So let's get rice on the go in the old cooker. No, I like Spam. I know it has a reputation, but I think it is an unearned reputation. I think it's actually a good product. It is exactly what it's trying to be. It's not pretending to be anything else. We need to make musubi sauce. And we need to think about a side dish to serve with this. I'm open to suggestions for that. As for this stuff, I'm surprised yes, exactly. You would make Spam, and they still do make Spam, from the offcuts and then it's pork with ham, and the idea was they would take some of the ham, which is a nice piece of meat, and mix that in with a bunch of the cheap pork, because they're using the offcuts, they're using the parts that aren't being sold as pieces of meat, and they're just mincing them up, putting them in a can, and pressure canning them. And then a little bit of ham in there, so you get a little bit of that fancy ham flavor. And then they put a bunch of salt and some spices in there and make it taste nice. And yeah, it doesn't taste like anything else. It tastes like Spam because it's a very specific thing that they made. I'm going to make musubi sauce with a recipe so that I don't mess this up. Musubi sauce. Sushi rice rinsed. Okay, yeah, I have all these ingredients. We can do this. So yeah, Actually, I have no idea where you're located, Traz, but you probably find spam there. It's not hot cuisine, but it's pretty good. Tablespoon of vinegar. Tablespoon of rice wine vinegar. This one does not ask for the same ingredients as the other one. 1/4 cup of soy sauce. I thought this was supposed to be a thicker sauce. Sauce. It's supposed to be like a sweet teriyaki thing. Musubi, which is what I'm now going to try making with these spam alikes. It's from Hawaii. Or, it's most famous from Hawaii. I don't want to make a declaration that it originated in Hawaii, if I'm not positive on that. I think it originated in Hawaii. I could be wrong. Let's see, recipe. It's a long thing. Rice teriyaki sauce. No, they used mirin. We can do it with mirin. Okay, tablespoon of mirin. Two, 3 of soy sauce. Splashed that around a little bit. Sesame oil, just a teaspoon of sesame oil. Denmark. Oh, I suppose you have the American aisle. I have no idea about export to Denmark, so I cannot speak to price. But yeah, if you're not in a place where they've got it, oops, shoot. But it might be. I know that it's a thing in. I've seen them in Ireland, the UK, Sweden, Germany. Those it'll be like a shelf at your local grocery store that's like the American section. And spam is iconic enough that they might show up in there as they like American thing. It's not some. It's a pretty common thing in America, and also it's famous, so it might show up. I'd take a peek when you're there next time. If it's super expensive, so a can of spam in America, well, I suppose it's different. America's so big. A can of spam around me is like $5 or $6, depending on the exact store you go to. So that's the price you're shooting for. If it's more than that, if it's a lot more than that, then it's probably not worth it. You get a pretty good amount of meat out of it, but it is like, kind of cheap meat. I don't have any brown sugar, so we're going to make our own brown sugar by putting some blackstrap molasses and some white sugar in here. A third of a cup. That is such a wonky, awkward amount. We're not going to be able to measure this. Yeah. Oh, I think your beef is cheaper than. If I do conversion in my head, well, here I've got a brick of frozen. So here I've got a frozen block of ground beef. Oh, the grams are covered up by this sticker. Um, 448. So this is about 450 grams. And the reduced price was $4.50. I think the regular price was $6 for this. And this is more meat than there is in a can of Spam. So now the price of this has gone up since I bought this. I bought this before the big inflation spike we just had. So that price is a little bit old. I think they're around, I don't know. I don't know what they are right now. Talking price comparisons. I can find a more recent one. I've got. What is that? I caught those blocks of meat on sale, and I stocked up on them. So I haven't actually had to buy fresh ground beef in a while. I think it's like $1 or $2 more than that now. The 93% leans just happens to be what they had when I loaded up on it. We have very overpriced fake Wagyu that I bought. What is that one? That's not beef. I guess what the stuff I've got is I've got a 90-10 ground bison. Anyways, I'm not in a huge rush, so I'm happy to stop and chit chat. Yeah, I'm not sure what the prices are now. I know they've gone up. I know those were those were like 2022 prices. Actually, don't know what the dates are on these. I could check exactly what the dates are on these. No, this is 2023. This is beginning of 2023. So it's about a year. It's about a year old. We're just going to use an actual tablespoon instead of using the tablespoon measure. Yeah. Yeah, the price of meat went up a lot, which is why I only buy meat on discount these days. And I'm one of the reasons I'm excited about trying these guys out and them working out so well is because they are, in fact, pretty reasonably priced um, compared to all the way all the other meats have gone. Um, I only occasionally buy fresh meat without catching it on some kind of a big discount these days because the prices have gone so crazy. Um, like and I took it out of its original packaging, so you can't see the original packaging. And then I vacuum sealed it because I knew I wasn't going to use it right away. And then I stuck it in here, and it's hiding. Here it is. I got a lobster tail. This lobster tail was $4. And I snagged it and froze it, put it in the vacuum thing and froze it. So that later down the line we can break out a lobster tail for some fancy special occasion. Because shellfish in the shell freezes really well. If you ever see shellfish on discount and you don't have a plan for it and it's in shell, yes, it was a steal. It was half off. They were supposed to be $8 each, and they're not very big lobster tails. But it was half off because they were trying to get rid of it. Because there was just a couple left, and they were the dregs from what they had. It was from it wasn't Valentine's Day because I got it before Valentine's Day. It was it the Super Bowl? I don't know. There was a big seafood sale like in January, and I'm not sure what it was for. And at the end of it, they had some extra stuff that they just slashed the prices on. So yeah. Ooh, that's real tasty. It's salty, it's sweet, it's a little bit bitter. I'm not really getting the acidity. Yeah, I spend a good amount of time bargain hunting for things so that I don't break the bank doing this because I could easily run massive bills, and we don't have the viewership or the subscriber base for me to be running up bills operating this channel at this point. So, and sometimes it bites me. When we made that steak, when we did that steak last week, that was a discount steak, and it tasted like a discount steak. It was real tough. It was real gristly. So sometimes it comes back to bite you. But I'm getting pretty good at dealing with things that are a little bit less than the best restaurant quality. And also, I literally just lost my train of thought mid-sentence. What was I saying? Less than restaurant quality. Something. I guess end of sentence because I don't know what the next part of that sentence was going to be. This is less sweet than I thought it was going to be for how much sugar I put into it. Oh, because the sugar's kind of sitting at the bottom. What has really helped me is I found at a thrift store that vacuum sealer, the thing I vacuum sealed that lobster tail with, so that I can put my meat, my discount meats, under vacuum, because they keep so much longer under vacuum than they do just in their original packaging or in a normal bag. Okay, so we're going to get that pan hot. We're going to start cooking these meats. What are we going to do as a side? What are we going to do as a side? What do you think? We already got the furikake. We've ooh, I know. I do still have a little bit of that one. I got a different brand of sriracha this time because of the sriracha shortage, and I haven't opened it yet because I was still working through the old one. But Tabasco made a sriracha in the to try to capitalize on Huifeng having a shortage, and I decided to give it a go. Why does the stove always look so dark these days? Be less dark. Okay, let's get... And I bet you that lobster was so cheap because they know that selling shellfish that's getting close to its date is a much harder sell than a lot of other things. Ooh, ooh, it's spicy. It's really good. Tastes a lot like sriracha, but not exactly like Huifeng sriracha. We're going to need a little bit of sriracha to make this. That's really tasty. It's a lot better than Food Club brand, which is my local store brand. I want to make a soup. Dashi soup. Can you just make dashi soup? Miso soup. I don't have miso. We ran out of miso and I didn't pick any up. Japanese soup. Do it noodles. So what we're going to do with these guys is they started sizzling, which is good. We're going to get them browned on at least one side. And then I'm going to add in the sauce so that they cook in it, so that it thickens and sticks to the outsides. I think you're supposed to marinate it, but we didn't do... Oh, no, that's exactly what the recipe here that I've got pulled up from Food and Wine. Add the Spam slices, cook over high heat, turning once until browned. We can turn the heat up a little bit. Add the sauce mixture, cook over medium heat, turning once more until the sauce turns into a glaze and coats your Spam slices. And we've got the perfect amount here to make 2 rolls and then cut them like you do. Bookwoman. It does not say spam on the package. Here's the package right here. It refers to luncheon. Here, it's too small. Here's the package right here. This is what we're working with. 60% less sodium than competing luncheon, than the leading luncheon. So far, huge fan. This stuff is a this stuff is really good. But no, it does not actually call out spam, but that's clearly what they're going for. It looks just like spam and it tastes just like spam. Also, hi, welcome in. We are making musubi, and I'm trying to think of a side dish for it. Since there were 5 of these. So there were 5 of these in the package, which together are approximately the size of a can. It's called Omni. Not to be confused with Omni, our friend. They feel a little soft in the cooking process here, but they hold together perfectly well. So I guess it's an illusion. So this package, which was 5 slices at a weight of 200 grams, so not a huge amount, was on sale, not in clearance discount, just on normal sale for $4. So it was less than $1 per slice. So, and that's less than a can of Spam. And when I took all the slices out and I put them together, they're about the size of a can of Spam. Although I don't have a can of Spam on hand, I couldn't do a direct, like, hold it up next to it comparison. I was just eyeballing it. They don't shrink as much as Spam when you cook them. So you don't lose as much in that process. Which is noteworthy. Because Spam does shrink when you cook it. Not a ton, but a little bit. The non-sale price, I think, was, I want to say it was $7. So they're a little bit pricier than Spam, but not massively pricier than Spam. And I don't eat a ton of Spam, so the fact that they're not that much more expensive might edge out Spam. Yeah, so there were 5 slices. I fried one just like this in a naked pan, and this greasy spot here is where I tasted it. And I was super impressed. So I decided to soldier forth with the plan here. And I think we're brown on the backs, so let's get our sauce into our pan and glaze these beasties up. I've never seen a meat substitute that actually cost less than the meat that it was substituting. But this one's close. This one's pretty close. They all almost disappeared in the foam that formed. So I'm leaving the package here because I'm very proud of. I'm not proud of it. Proud is the wrong word. Very pleased. Not a sponsor, but hey, OmniBrand, if you're looking for someone to pitch your stuff, I almost have a viewership. So yeah, super impressed, super impressed. And I was talking about how I think this is the perfect application for plant proteins is these super highly processed things. Because plant proteins are highly processed. There's no escaping that. Okay, picture of a can of Spam, it's 340 grams. Okay, so you do get, although how much is water weight? Because you don't lose as, I don't know. We can do a side-by-side comparison in the future if we want to. But I'm super pleased with these things. I think because it tastes like Spam, but it tastes milder. It's understated compared to Spam. And like I said, they barely shrink when you cook them. They stay almost exactly the same size. It did shrink a tiny bit, but it was just so marginal. So you might lose a little bit less from the cooking process. Also, and this was a selling point, spear. That's also a selling point right there. Sold. I'll take a dozen. This was also a selling point that I came up with. These pre-sliced slices are easier to just use one or two of compared to when you open a can of Spam, you're committed to a can of Spam. It's super not reclosable. I have tried keeping the other half of a can of Spam, and it keeps. But these, since they're individually sliced already and they're frozen, they don't stick together in a brick when they're in there. They're as slices. You could just open that thing up, pull one out, and keep the rest frozen. So they're easier to portion out. They're like, okay, so that's a good point. You should compare the prices to those individual slice Spams because these are individual slice pieces and they store like that. The package just says make sure they're cooked to 160 internal. I don't know. It doesn't say you can't eat them raw anywhere on the package that I can find. So I assume it's fine because it does not say anything at all about you must cook this. And it's got instructions for an air fryer, for an oven, for a stovetop, which we did here. Yeah. So yeah, big fan, big impressed. Thank you so much, Shining Spear, for the resubscription for 20 months. Damn. Has it been 20 months already? It feels like just yesterday. So yeah, here, let me find. Spam Classic Singles. are 71 grams each. So if you got 3 of those, which I can get oh, there's our rice. I think if you I would have to do a whole comparison thing, but I think that they compare favorably to the single slice spams. Anyways, super impressed. That's our rice. Let's get the thing turned off. We need it to cool off a little bit. We also need to get some vinegar in there because we're making sushi rice. If no one chimes in soon with an idea for a side dish, then we're just going to make vegan spam musubi, and that's going to be the only thing I make because I can't think of anything else. I suppose I could make noodles. Already got rice. I kind of want a soup. I kind of want a light soup. I kind of want to make a light soup. I think that the recipe I followed for the musubi glaze here was for more. Yeah, it's for a larger amount of spam. So we have extra glaze, but these are looking scoop some of that glaze on top and let it sort of glaze its way in. These are looking pretty good, and our glaze is getting nice and sticky thick. Sticky thick. So those are probably done. Just turn the heat off and let them settle in a little bit. Are we making... So the rice needs to cool off. Those guys need to cool off because they need to be able to handle them. They don't need to be cold. They just need to be not going to burn my hands. So we have a moment. In fact, we're going to move them there. Use this front burner that's preheated. We're going to make a little soup. I'm going to try to concoct just a little something. A something soup. Just because I want a light something to go with what's going to be a heavy main. If I had some green tea, if I had some green tea, we could do like a green tea soup. That could have been interesting. I don't have any green tea. We can't do that. Where's my cup measure? Doing this the most foolish possible way. So that's some granulated dashi and a cup of water. That's our starting point. We're gonna make like a light brothy thing. Keep opening the cupboard thinking there was something different in there this time, and there never is. It's weird how there never is. I would make miso soup, but I don't have any miso because we used up the miso on the pizza. Because that's a thing that happens in this house. Ooh! Enoki. These guys. I have them. We got to use them. We can make a light mushroom soup with a scallion, some enoki, a little bit of this stuff. It's not exactly miso, but it's in the realm. We can kind of concoct. I doubt it will dissolve the way miso does. We want this to come to a simmer so that it dissolves all those bits. We need my cutting board back. Okay. Take the. You guys are looking at nothing. Join me over here, won't you? We're taking the outermost layer off of this scallion because it got a little gnarly. And a tiny little bit off the end there, but the rest of it's actually pretty usable. Okay, okay. But no, going back to the last thing Cybertrash said, which was a while up there now. Yes, that was a crazy discount, but if you want to see a thing that is the craziest discount I've ever seen, and it's so crazy that I'm a little worried about what's wrong with it. I held it up right at the start. I don't know if anyone was here. I will hold it up again, just because I'm baffled that they can sell this and make a profit at all. And it's not even like it was bargain bin. It's a new item. This wild caught whole salmon fillet. You can see it in there. It's a whole. The ingredients are just salmon and water. It's not like it's mixed with anything. This thing was $4. Not on the discount bin. They had a huge stack of them. I didn't cook it today because I didn't know what to do with a whole side of salmon. I need to plan that one out and have like people to join me for it. I don't know how you get away with selling a whole side of salmon. Even like pretty low quality salmon is never that cheap. So I don't know. I'm almost worried what's wrong with it. If I should do it soon, I should cook that soon, just to test it. And if it's good, go back and get a couple more before they sell out. Because again, it's frozen, so it'll keep. Cut the substrate chunks off. So I don't. I'm not sure what to think. We are adding our mushrooms to our soup. We're making a light soupy soup thing. You guys are over here with me. Now this is not miso, so it's not going to dissolve the way miso does. But it is a bean paste, so it's maybe going to dissolve and give us some flavor. I also think we've boiled off a little bit too much water, so I'm going to give it a half-eve water. Just to bump us up. This stuff's tasty. Doesn't taste anything like miso. Doesn't taste anything like miso. Which is so strange because it's basically the same thing, but it's clearly not. The process clearly matters. Okay. Okay. Our rice is drying out a little bit because I let it sit here with the top open. But we got to get it out of there. Join me, won't you? We might have more rice than I need, but better to have more than not enough. Extra rice is never a bad thing. It's still steamy, but it's not burning hot. So I think we're on point. It's good rice. We have actual sushi rice for this because I wanted actual sushi rice. We're going to lightly vinegar it. And I don't think we need any salt in it because we're going to be putting our glazed Spam with it. Stir it in to get the vinegar all throughout. Take a peek at our soup, see if the bean paste, yeah, it doesn't dissolve really well. There's like little flakes. But it's about as dissolved as I think it's gonna get. There are just like little brown flakes from it. Toss in our scallion and call that a soup. I have some oldish nori. I have some slightly oldish nori. But it's been sealed up and it's a dry product, so it should be, let's get that thing out of here. It should be fine. Get it to release from itself. There's a half piece. Okay, I have directions. Musubi. You don't need a roll for this, but they recommend a plastic underneath it. Oh, and I need a little dish with water for my fingers. Okay. I think we are prepared to start the assembly. Little dish of water. That should be just about right. About that long. Yeah, they'll fit just about perfectly. Oop, I touched it immediately. Sushi rice is very sticky, so you are supposed to, and I did not, wet the tips of your fingers so that it doesn't stick to you while you are shaping it. And what we're going for here is a rectangular mound, so square up the sides, a rectangular mound of rice that is the shape of our slices of Spam, extends to the ends of our sushi or our nori roll, or nori paper, and is about twice as thick as the Spam the tall way. Getting the right proportions is supposed to be a key. My nori is taking on a funny shape because I got part of it wet. And then we are taking some furikake, which is rice seasoning. And I have the kind that has bonito in it. There are different varieties. It goes on top of your rice. Then we take these guys with their sticky, sticky glazes. Plunk them down. Okay, now there's instructions for rolling. There's a shaper thing that I don't have. That's like a rectangle that shapes the rice. We're ignoring that because I don't have one. I'm going to do this backwards because that side has a weird wrinkle to it, and I want that side to be on the inside. So you fold over, you squish it into itself, and you should have, oh, nope. Okay, we have to wet. We have to wet the edge of our nori so that it sticks to itself when we shape it. Okay, looking good. We squished out the end a little bit. I'm just gonna, nope. That's gonna stick to my finger, so I can't push it in, but I was gonna just tuck that in on both ends. And then we retrieve it over to the cutting surface where I will cut it as soon as I've got both of them done. Okay. Part deux. Part the second. My nori got slightly crinkled. I definitely have more rice than I need. This was definitely a recipe for 6 slices, and I only had 4. But that's fine. Same thing happened with the glaze. They keep sticking to my fingers, and I keep cleaning my fingers using my mouth, which you don't do if you're sharing these with people. Okay. Squish down our log. These are easier in general. Oop, we have an ad. Generally, I think these are easier than making sushi, but it's a similar process. Well, I only saw the ad very briefly, so I guess I was doing something during the ad. Hopefully it was something boring. Okay. I think my rice is sticking out too far on that end, but that's fine. But that's fine. Using the plastic wrap. To really give us some leverage. Wet the edge there. Because like with sushi, I think you want them real tight. And this time I'm going to use the plastic to tuck the ends in instead of my fingers so that it doesn't stick to me. There you go. 2 nice, neat logs. We can get rid of our dipping water because I am out of sushis. Noris. I keep calling it sushi. The rice is sushi. We're using sushi rice for this, but we're just using nori. Okay. I think we are. Here they are. Here they be. It's the boys. I think I did better on the sizing on the first one, but better on the sealing on the second one. Although they're very close. I think that this, like I said, this is very similar to the process for making sushi, but I think it's a lot easier. Plate selection, because that's all I'm going to cook today. We made a soup. We made these things. We're going to taste test them, but we're going to use this plate. We're going to use that plate. So there's each one of them has a joint right in the middle where the 2 pieces of Spam meet. And you want to cut a sharp knife right through it. And you want a real sharp knife so that you don't get a ragged edge. Because nori tends to want to shatter instead of slice. We've had that problem before. And then, they don't look like much like this. You can see the little Spams peeking out, but when they're served, I always see them cut in half right through the piece of Spam so that you get that little cross section right there where you can see the furikake, you can see the Spam, you can see the rice. Sometimes they're sandwiched in the middle. Sometimes they're done like this. And that is musubi with our veggie Spam. I'm going to cut this one as well. for the artful plating. And we'll go for the taste test right now instead of waiting. So let's tuck in. Mmm. 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 Okay. They're a little awkward to eat because the big sheet of nori wants to like tear a little bit instead of biting through. And thus it wants to kind of squish the stuff out the sides. But they're super tasty. That glaze, which actually, I think we want even maybe a little bit more glaze available just for like dipping. That glaze is super good. It's sweet and savory, just a tiny bit bitter. The whole thing is very like sticky rice. And it's oh God, how to describe it? It's sweet, it's salty, but not extremely salty. This is actually much less salty than I was expecting based on past experiences, which I suppose is attributable to the Spam itself having, or this fake Spam, this Omni plant-based luncheon having substantially less salt than Spam does. You could probably add a little bit salt to this, honestly. Although I don't think you have to. It's pretty good as is. So it's sweet, sticky. It has a meaty taste to it, but it's very mild. Mmm. It's quite good. I've seen these done with a strip of nori, just binding it together instead of a whole sheet like this, which I think is less common, but it might be slightly easier to eat, although you might end up sticking to the rice more, because we made a very sticky rice. It just stays on me when I touch it. So it's a teeny bit of a mess, but not like a messy mess, because the sticky rice isn't like leaving a residue. It's just clinging to you. And we could probably fix that by adding a bit more vinegar to it. I think I under-vinegared it slightly. Let's serve our soup too. Which looks like miso soup at a glance, but it definitely has these little bits from the wrong kind of bean paste being in it. But I think something wet is just what just the accompaniment for this. With my cute little spoon. Ooh, it's definitely not miso soup. It's real mild. I lost it. I lost it as soon as I bit into a piece of onion. It's almost nutty, So what we used was this stuff, which is I got because I was trying to make a Chinese dish that called for a Chinese soybean paste, and I couldn't find Chinese soybean paste. I could only find Korean soybean paste, and I hoped it was the same thing. This stuff is not, it's not fermented the way miso is. It's salted, but it's not fermented. And I think when you put it in the soup like that, and it sort of rinses the salt away into the soup, what you're left with is the nuttiness of the soybeans. So it's almost like a very light peanut soup. Strange. A little strange. And I think we are going to come up with plating. Well, I started a little bit late, and we were running a little bit short, but that's fine. Kind of expected that to be the outcome, and it's dinner time for me, so I want to tuck into this. I'm just trying to come up with a nice plating. The bowl's a little bit too big for the amount of soup I ended up with. Oh, I know. We'll put that. I don't know. Anyways, we got away with a completely vegan meal because oh no, we didn't. We didn't because I used hondashi. Because I used hondashi, which has fish in it. Okay, well, aside from that, we got away with a veggie meal today. I didn't even think of that. Oh well. I wasn't trying for vegan food. I was trying for these things. They're really tasty. They cook up just like Spam. They taste just like Spam, but milder. The texture is excellent. The texture is that processed meat texture, like spot on. Yeah, I'm super impressed, and they worked their way into a recipe. I need to assemble a plate. It doesn't look terrible. But I guess that means I'm going to wrap us up. Let's keep my little spoon handy. So, pop me back to my face. I'm going to wrap us up. I really want to work out what to do with that half of a salmon, because if that's good at all, even if it's mediocre at that price, I'd go back and get another one. But I have to test it, so I'm probably going to have a dinner party, just to give it a go, because it's too much for me. But me being done, let's send you all off somewhere. Let's see who's on a Friday. Ew, Friday. I am going to keep this handy because I think they need a little bit of spice. They're sweet and starchy and meaty and salty. No spice, nothing spicy. I think they need just a little goose. Oh, I know exactly where we're going. I know exactly where we're going to go see. We're going to go visit WeFormer, who is doing fan art right now of Hazbin Hotel. So, if you don't mind, stick with me for just a minute. We'll go say hi to WeFormer. I'll settle down to tuck into this, what ended up being a huge win, big success. I was prepared for these things to be bad, because the last thing I tried, the last vegan meat substitute that I tried that was like completely new to me, was awful. So I was prepared for these to be awful, and they did not do that to me. They completely nailed it. So I'm super happy. So this was big successes. I'm going to keep these things in mind. Since they're on sale now and they're a frozen, I might even grab one or two more, and chuck them in the freezer just to have them. But yeah, thanks for sticking with me. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for being here. So glad. Thanks to Shining Spear for the resub. And I guess I'll see you very soon with something to do with fish. Something to do with fish. Bye. And then we push stop.